Good afternoon. Today I'm pleased to introduce the Ambassador Daniel Fried, who came to Elcano to speak us and to presented the paper, the Democratic Defense Against Disinformation. It's the document published by the Atlantic Council, and Ambassador Daniel Fried and Alina Polyakova, the authors of this paper, presented it today in Elcano. Ambassador, welcome to the Elcano.
Thank you.
And my first question, this paper has like 15 pages, but if I ask you, if we talk about the disinformation, what is the most important aspect of disinformation and what is the most urgent thing that we have to do with disinformation?
Disinformation, that is the deliberate distortion of information for political purposes, is a major challenge we all face. The purpose of the paper was to come up with usable, practical policy solutions so that we can limit the damage. That's urgent. What's important is that democratic societies remain true to their values and develop ways, a kind of antibodies, as it were, to deal with disinformation. But in the meantime, while we're developing those democratic antibodies, that means an educated population and people who understand junk news when they receive it. In the meantime, governments, civil society, private organizations all have roles to play in limiting the damage.
Second question, in this paper you reflect that the transatlantic relationship and transatlantic cooperation is one of the key elements of our democratic defense against disinformation. Please, can you develop a little bit more this idea for our public?
Absolutely critical that the transatlantic community, Europe and the United States, work together. We are together the core of the world's democratic community. We face challenges from authoritarians and dictators outside. We need to work together. Now, I know that in America there have been periods of Euroscepticism. Those who think we Americans can act without Europe discover their mistake. We are much stronger if we are acting together. So the biggest single recommendation in that paper is that Europe and the United States together bring together all the stakeholders, governments, social media companies, civil society, and come up with common standards, common approaches, exchange information about how to deal with disinformation.
Last question is about the sanction, the policy of
Sure.
sanctions against Russia. What do you think, what is the attitude of European Union, and what is, do you consider that the collaboration of European Union with United States is good, is right, regarding a sanction against Russia, or we can improve something?
Well, full disclosure, my last job in government, I was the State Department coordinator for sanctions, and I was the chief negotiator with the European Union, but also with national governments, including Spain's, about the shape of our combined transatlantic US-EU sanctions after the Russians invaded Ukraine. I consider that to be a good experience. I think Europe did its part. We did deals, that is, we would negotiate what we would do. Europe did its part, we did our part, and I would gladly do it again. Now, the Trump administration, somewhat ironically, I suppose, given the campaign that Donald Trump ran, has increased the sanctions a week ago. We stepped up our sanctions against the Russians for a number of reasons, but really mainly because of Russian interference in our election. Europe has to consider now what it will do. After the Skripal poisoning, Europe acted in solidarity and expelled, with the United States, expelled a number of Russian diplomats. The United States then took a separate step in response to Russian bad activities. Europe has to think of the next steps. Sanctions are not fun. They hurt. They hurt the target and they have costs for us. But in my view, the best way to get to a better relationship with a better Russia is to resist the bad Russia we've got now. And by bad Russia, I mean a Russia which invades its neighbors, kills people, either actually kills them or attempts to assassinate them, as in the poisoning of the Skripals, and is generally a malign actor. I don't believe that Russia is doomed to act according to its worst traditions. But to get to that better Russia, we have to resist the Russia we've got now. And sanctions may be one tool.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.